AITA for kicking my wife out of the house when I found out she cheated with my best friend. I always believed betrayal came from strangers, the kind of people you meet in dark alleys or bad neighborhoods. But the truth hit me like a freight train, and it came from two people I trusted the most. My best friend and the woman I thought I would spend the rest of my life with. It started off like any other relationship. Perfect. I met Emily right after high school. We were both ambitious, driven by the same goals and dreams. She was brilliant, and I admired her intelligence. She knew what she wanted out of life, and I was lucky enough to be by her side. Everyone around us thought we were the couple everyone dreamed of. Her parents loved me, and my friends saw me as the guy who had it all. The perfect fiancé, a promising career, and a future full of potential. We dated for 5 years, and every year Emily asked the same question. When are you going to propose? It started as a playful question, but as the years passed, it became a broken record. It wasn't that I didn't love her. I did, but I was cautious. Marriage was a huge step, and I wanted to be sure it was right for both of us. But Emily, she was always ready. It seemed like she had been preparing for this moment her whole life. After endless pressure, I finally gave in. We had the wedding of our dreams in a vineyard. My high school best friend, Mark, was my best man, and another close friend officiated. Everything about the day felt magical. The vows, the promises, the love in the air. We had a perfect honeymoon on a remote tropical island. We came back filled with excitement for the next chapter of our lives. But that's where the perfection ended. It didn't take long before I started noticing small changes. Emily seemed distant, and Mark started acting a little off. At first, I brushed it off. We had just returned from our honeymoon. After all, maybe it was the stress of adjusting to married life. But then Mark went missing for a few days. I thought it was strange but didn't think much of it until he returned and confessed something I never could have imagined. Mark had been carrying on a string of affairs and needed to confess. He was tired of living a lie, he said. But that wasn't what shook me to the core. A few days after his confession, Emily went missing. She wouldn't return my calls or texts. And when I drove to Mark's house to confront him, there she was. I stood there in shock, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. I demanded to know what was going on. How long had this been happening? Mark simply looked at me, his face expressionless, and said, "A while." A while. That's when it all came crashing down. The affair had been going on for over 2 years, even before we got married. All the promises, all the vows, all the things Emily had whispered to me about our future, they were all lies. My best friend, the one I had known since high school, stood by my side as I spoke of my undying love for Emily, not as a friend but as an accomplice to the betrayal. The worst part, Emily had been begging for marriage, pressuring me for years to make it official. All the while, she had already been having an affair with Mark. The man who had stood by my side, smiled in my face, and played the part of my best friend had been my greatest enemy all along. I packed my things that night. I left everything behind. My house, my friends, and the life I thought I had. I moved to another state, hoping to escape the ghosts of what had happened. For a while, I tried to reconcile with Emily, hoping she'd see the pain she caused and try to make it right. But deep down, I knew it would never be the same. I tried to move on, and eventually, I met someone new. Her name was Sarah. She was kind, beautiful, and everything I needed at that moment. We bought a house together, a big beautiful 4-bedroom place. It felt like the beginning of something good, something real. But life had a way of throwing curveballs. Sarah's best friend, Olivia, faced a tragedy, and we opened our home to her and her boyfriend, John. John and I became fast friends. He was easygoing, laid back, and despite his rough edges, he was someone I could rely on. He had his own issues, but I figured everyone had baggage. Eventually, John and Olivia broke up, and Olivia moved away. But John stayed. He struggled to get his life together. He'd wake up late, smoke weed most of the day, and drag himself to a part-time cooking gig down the road. I could see he was trying, but it never seemed to stick. He'd tried to move out, but it never worked out. Each time, I let him back in. And then it happened again. This time, it wasn't just a betrayal by a friend. It was a betrayal by someone I thought I could trust with my whole heart. But this time, it wasn't Mark. It was Sarah. Update 1. Life wasn't supposed to be like this. After everything with Emily and Mark, I thought I had learned my lesson. I swore I wouldn't let myself fall for anyone again. But Sarah, she made me believe in something again. We moved into our new house, and for a while, it felt like I was healing. We laughed, we planned, and things seemed to be falling into place. It was everything I had dreamed of, or so I thought. I threw myself into our relationship, convinced that with Sarah, I had finally found someone who was different. She was supportive, loving, and beautiful. I'd even catch myself smiling when I looked at her, remembering the way I used to smile at Emily. It was too good to be true. I should have known. I should have been cautious. But part of me wanted to believe that I deserved happiness again. Sarah had a history of bad relationships. I knew that. She told me about her past, the toxic ex-boyfriends, the emotional scars she carried. She'd always said she was trying to rebuild herself, to learn how to trust again. I could relate to that. After everything with Emily and Mark, I needed to rebuild too. I remember one conversation we had shortly after we moved in together. She told me how lucky she felt to have someone who truly cared about her. I was touched by her words. She seemed genuine, as if she was exactly what I needed, someone who would help me forget the pain of the past. But deep down, there was a nagging voice I couldn't silence. Something was off. As time went on, Sarah began to change. It was subtle at first. She started smoking weed more often. I didn't have an issue with it. I wasn't the type of person who would judge someone for their habits, as long as it didn't consume their life. But then it did. It consumed her. She would spend entire days in the house zoning out on the couch, barely acknowledging me when I came home from work. I worked at the hospital during the night shift, so when I came home in the morning, she was usually still asleep. I'd come home to find her in the same spot where I left her on the couch, her eyes glazed over. There were days when she wouldn't even get up to make lunch, and I found myself doing it. I was okay with it at first, thinking it was just a phase, that she was simply adjusting to our life together, to the quiet routine we were building. But it wasn't just weed anymore. There were lies, little things that didn't make sense. She'd tell me she was meeting a friend, but when I asked about it later, she'd change the story. Sometimes she wouldn't answer her phone for hours, and I'd hear the excuses when she finally did. Something about bad service or how she lost track of time. I didn't want to accuse her of anything. I didn't want to be paranoid, but my mind wouldn't stop. It was a familiar feeling, a feeling I had learned to distrust, but one night, after a particularly long shift, I came home to find her asleep on the couch again. I decided to do something I never thought I'd do. I took an old and used cell phone I had lying around, turned it on, and hid in the living room. It wasn't something I was proud of, but something inside me told me I needed to know the truth. If she wasn't cheating, I could relax. But if she was, then I had to face it. The next morning, I listened to the recording. The sound of laughter, soft whispers. My heart sank as I heard the unmistakable voice of John, the guy who had moved in with us after his breakup. My best friend, my roommate, was in my house with my fiancée, and they were laughing together in a way that made my skin crawl. I listened further as they talked, a conversation that was too casual, too familiar. They shared jokes, talked about personal things, things that made it clear their relationship was more than friendly. And then I heard it. "I can't believe Alex is so clueless," Sarah said. My stomach churned. The words hung in the air like poison. I thought I was hearing things, that maybe I was just imagining it. But I wasn't. I wasn't wrong. I shut off the recorder, my hands trembling as I sat down. I couldn't breathe. I felt like the walls were closing in on me, the weight of everything crushing me. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was emotional, psychological. It wasn't just John and Sarah sneaking around behind my back. It was the lies, the secrecy, the manipulations. It was everything. I confronted Sarah later that day. I didn't need to explain how I knew. I just asked her outright. She didn't deny it. Instead, she tried to downplay it, saying it wasn't what it seemed, that it was just a mistake. But deep down, I knew better. My heart shattered all over again. I had trusted her, and once again, I was left holding the pieces of a broken relationship. I kicked both of them out of my house that same night. Sarah begged me to reconsider, but I couldn't. It wasn't just the affair. It was the disrespect, the betrayal of everything I had worked for in this relationship. The love I thought we shared was a lie, just like the one Emily had fed me. Update 2. The days after Sarah and John left felt like a haze. My house, once filled with the sound of laughter and the promise of a future, now stood silent. The silence was deafening. I didn't want to be alone, but I couldn't bear the thought of being around anyone either. I started to question everything. Was it me? Had I missed the signs? Was I just too trusting? The pain from the betrayal felt fresh, raw, and unrelenting. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It wasn't just the fact that Sarah had betrayed me with John, someone who had lived under my roof and called me a friend. It was the way she dismissed everything, as though what we shared meant nothing. Her excuses felt hollow, empty, as if she believed I would just accept it, move on, and pretend nothing had happened. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. I decided to take a break from everything. I needed space, clarity. I went on a solo trip to the mountains, away from the noise and distractions, hoping that in the silence of nature, I would find some peace. The landscape was beautiful, but it couldn't fill the void. I kept thinking about how everything had fallen apart, how I had trusted both of them, how they'd been so careless with my heart. The anger built inside me like a storm, The kind that you know is coming, but you don't know how to stop. I couldn't leave things like this. I couldn't just sit back and let it slide. I had to confront John face to face and get answers. I needed to know why he'd done this, why he betrayed me in such a way. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. John had been my friend. I helped him when he was down. I had given him a place to stay, let him lean on me when his life was falling apart. And this is how he repaid me. I called him. His phone went straight to voicemail. I wasn't surprised. He was always good at avoiding confrontation, always good at hiding behind excuses. But this time, I wasn't going to let him off easy. I drove to his place. I wasn't sure what I was expecting. Maybe a confrontation, maybe an apology, maybe a confession. But as I stood there on his doorstep, knocking relentlessly, I realized he wasn't going to answer. I wasn't sure what to do next. But then I heard a voice behind me. "Alex," I turned, startled. It was Sarah. She was standing there, her face pale, her eyes filled with guilt and fear. Her presence hit me like a wave, and for a second, I almost wanted to collapse. I didn't know what to say. Everything I had planned to tell her, everything I thought I needed to say, evaporated in that moment. The pain of seeing her again was too much to bear. "You need to leave," I said, my voice steady. "This is between me and John. It's over. Don't make it worse." She stepped closer, hesitating, and then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke. "I'm sorry. I made a huge mistake. I never meant for it to go this far." I almost laughed, but it came out as a bitter snarl. "You didn't mean for it to go this far," I repeated. "Sarah, I thought we were building something. You don't just fall into an affair. You make choices every day, over and over again." "I know," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you, Alex, but I don't know. I don't know what happened. It was a mistake, and I regret it more than you'll ever know." I stared at her, trying to read her face, but there was nothing there that I could trust. She had apologized before and then did it again. She wasn't sorry, not for the affair, not for what she did. She was sorry because she got caught. I wanted to yell, scream, break something. I wanted to make her feel the way I felt, raw, exposed, and powerless. But instead, I stood there, frozen, unsure of what to do next. My thoughts were a mess. Nothing made sense anymore. It was like my whole life had turned upside down and I didn't know which way was up. Before I could say anything more, she stepped back. "I know I can't make things right, but please, Alex, can you ever forgive me?" The question lingered in the air, but I couldn't answer. I wasn't ready to forgive her. Not yet. And I wasn't sure I ever would be. How could I? How could I ever trust her again? I didn't say anything. I just turned and walked away, leaving her standing there on the doorstep, her words fading behind me. Days passed. I tried to move on. I kept myself busy, but nothing could fill the emptiness that Sarah and John had left behind. I stayed away from people, avoiding their pitying looks, the questions they would inevitably ask. I didn't have the strength to explain what had happened. I just wanted to be left alone. I'd like to say I was stronger for it, that I had it all together, that I was able to move on and find peace. But the truth is, I wasn't sure I ever would. I was still angry, still hurt, and still reeling from the betrayal. Every memory, every touch, every whispered promise seemed tainted now, forever changed by their lies. But then I ran into John again, a few weeks later. He was with someone else, a new girlfriend. She was younger, smiling, laughing, and everything about her made my blood boil. There he was, moving on without a care in the world, while I was still stuck in the past, stuck with the wreckage of my life. I could have confronted him then. I could have yelled at him, asked him how he could do this to me, but I didn't. Instead, I just watched him walk away. And in that moment, I realized something. He wasn't worth my anger. I wasn't going to let him take up any more of my energy. He wasn't worth it. I was done. Update 3. It's funny how life works. 1 minute, you're standing at the edge of everything you thought you knew. And the next, you find yourself standing in the ruins of it all, wondering how it all fell apart so fast. I'd been avoiding contact with Sarah and John, but the reality of living in the same city as them was starting to weigh on me. Every time I passed a familiar spot, I couldn't help but wonder if they were there, living the life I thought I was supposed to have. That gnawing feeling of betrayal was constantly with me. Every corner I turned, I felt it lurking in the shadows, ready to remind me of everything they had stolen. But that day, the day everything changed, was the day I stopped running. I had spent the past few weeks, months even, trying to put the pieces of my life back together. I tried dating again, meeting new people, distracting myself. But deep down, I knew I wasn't ready. I wasn't really ready to be with someone else. I was still tethered to the past, to Sarah, to John, to the lies they had told me. And no matter how much I tried to move forward, there was always a piece of me that was stuck. That morning, I ran into Sarah again. It wasn't planned. It wasn't some grand moment where I made a conscious decision to face her. I was just walking through a bookstore when I heard her voice. I froze. The words she said didn't even register at first, but I knew they were directed at me. Alex. I turned slowly, my heart racing. She was standing there, looking just as she had when we first met. But there was something different about her now, something I couldn't place. Her eyes were tired, her face thinner, like the weight of everything had finally caught up with her. We stood there, not saying a word, for what felt like hours. I could feel the tension between us, the unspoken questions. She opened her mouth, then closed it, clearly unsure of how to start. I didn't know how to react. For so long, I had wanted answers, wanted to hear her explain herself. But now, I wasn't sure I even cared anymore. She broke the silence first. "I'm sorry, Alex," she said, her voice shaky. "I know it's not enough, but I have to say it. I never wanted to hurt you. You didn't deserve what I did to you." I didn't answer right away. I didn't know what to say. All I wanted was for her to leave, to just disappear and let me move on. But part of me needed this. I needed to know if there was any possibility of redemption, or if everything we had was just a lie from the start. "I don't know why I did it," she continued, her voice breaking. "I don't know how I let things get so far, but I've changed, Alex. I've tried to change." I wanted to scream at her, tell her that it was too late for apologies, that she had already taken too much. But I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, looking at her, the woman I once loved, the woman who had destroyed everything I believed in. "I can't forgive you, Sarah," I said, my voice steady, though my chest felt like it was caving in. "I thought I could, but I can't. You hurt me in ways I don't think I can ever forget." Her face crumpled, the tears welling up in her eyes, but I didn't look away. I had spent so much of my life trying to forgive, trying to move past everything, but I was done. I wasn't going to let her own me anymore. "Please don't shut me out," she pleaded. "Please, Alex, I'm not asking for us to be together again. I just need you to know how sorry I am." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Sorry doesn't fix anything," I said, my voice cold. "Sorry doesn't undo the lies, the betrayal. I can't go back to what we were. I can't erase what you did to me." For the first time in months, I felt something shift inside me. It was like a dam had broken, and all the pain I had been holding in came rushing to the surface. But instead of breaking down, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment when I finally stopped living in the shadow of what had happened. "I have to go," I said, turning away from her. I didn't look back as I walked out of the bookstore, my heart pounding. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel trapped. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, reflecting on the conversation. It wasn't closure. Not exactly. But it was something more powerful: freedom. I had spent so long holding on to the hope that I could somehow make things right, that I could somehow go back to the life I had with Sarah. But that wasn't who I was anymore. I had changed. And in a strange way, I was thankful for it. I didn't need Sarah to apologize. I didn't need John to explain himself. What I needed was to let go. And I finally had. But as I sat there, staring out the window, I couldn't help but wonder, what now? I had survived the worst betrayal of my life. I had lost the two people I had trusted the most, but I was still here. I still had a future. And this time, it was one I was going to build for myself. Update 4. It's strange how life has a way of moving forward even when you feel stuck. A week had passed since I saw Sarah, and in that time I had done nothing but reflect on everything. The anger had settled into something quieter, something I could live with. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't hate her. I wasn't consumed by the pain, but I couldn't deny that what she and John did would always be a part of me. And maybe that was okay. I'd started to rebuild, slowly at first, but with purpose. I reconnected with old friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. I spent time rediscovering things I loved but had abandoned. There was a quiet peace in rediscovery. I took up painting again, something I used to do in college. It felt good to have something that was just mine, something that existed purely for my own pleasure. It gave me a sense of control over my life, something I had sorely lacked for a long time. But I was still alone. That was the hardest part. I wasn't looking for love anymore, at least not in the way I had been. I didn't need someone else to complete me, to make me feel whole. That was a lie I'd believed for so long. I had to learn how to be complete on my own, how to heal without relying on anyone else to fix me. It was in that quiet solitude that I began to understand something important. That what I had been through wasn't a punishment. It wasn't some cruel twist of fate that had ruined my life. It was an opportunity. An opportunity to finally see the world for what it was. To understand my own strength and to learn that the only person who could truly make me happy was me. One afternoon, a few months later, I ran into John again. This time it wasn't a surprise. I saw him walking down the street, his face a mixture of nervousness and avoidance when he saw me. He stopped in his tracks, as if unsure of what to do. I paused, watching him for a moment. There was no anger in my chest, no burning desire to make him feel guilty. He looked different, more disheveled, as though life hadn't been kind to him either. But I couldn't bring myself to feel anything for him anymore. I took a deep breath and walked toward him. "John," I said, my voice calm but firm. He looked at me, his eyes shifting. "Alex, I don't need an explanation," I interrupted. "I'm not here to hear what you have to say, but I need you to know something. I'm done with it. I'm done with the lies, with the pain, with the past." He looked at me, almost surprised. "I don't expect you to forgive me." I shrugged. "I'm not here to forgive you. I'm here because I need to let go of the weight you've put on me. You're not worth my anger, John, and you never will be again." I could see the realization in his eyes, the understanding that I was no longer the person he had wronged. That version of me was gone, lost to the past. With a final glance, I walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I wasn't chained to that moment anymore. The months that followed were quieter. I dated again, but this time it was different. I wasn't rushing into something to fill the empty space. I was learning to be patient, to enjoy the simple moments. I found happiness in my own company, in my own skin. But it wasn't just the quiet moments I cherished. I started building a life that was truly mine. I accepted the scars, the broken parts of me, and I learned how to wear them with pride. They weren't a mark of weakness. They were proof of my survival. I had survived betrayal, and I had come out stronger. There were still moments of doubt. Sometimes I'd hear a song that reminded me of Sarah, or I'd walk past a place where John and I used to hang out. The memories would creep up on me, and for a split second, I'd feel that pang of loss. But it didn't consume me anymore. It was just a part of the process. One day, as I sat on the porch of my new apartment, looking out at the sunset, I realized something. I had forgiven myself. I didn't need to forgive Sarah or John or anyone else. I didn't need them to apologize or explain. The only person who needed to make peace with the past was me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The journey had been painful. It had broken me in ways I never thought possible. But it had also made me who I was. I had learned that the things we go through don't define us. It's how we choose to move forward that matters. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I had found something better. I had found freedom. And that, in the end, was enough. Be sure to like and subscribe. Share your thoughts below.